All right, guys, welcome back to another edition of Paranormal Planet Live. I'm Jack Carey, your host. It's been a few weeks since I've been able to get on here and talk to you guys. I've been in the midst of, as I discussed in a few of my previous episodes, I was in the midst of relocating back to my home state of Oklahoma, which had always been a long-term plan of mine anyway, and I've reached that age after exploring the world basically for 30 years. It was time to come back, be closer to family, and it's here that there's an amazing amount of cryptid animal activity, and so an amazing opportunity has presented itself back here in my home state. And so I have discussed this before. So a childhood friend of mine was able to initially purchase, it was right at 2,500 acres in LaFleur County, Oklahoma, which is, for any Bigfoot investigator well knows, LaFleur County is like a ground zero spot for Bigfoot activity. It holds more Bigfoot activity, more sighting activity there, reports than all of the counties and all of the four states surrounding Oklahoma combined. So it's an amazing place. Recently, or in the last couple of years, however, he did sell off about 1,500 acres of that to another private landowner, and that what remains is this 1,000-acre plot that'll always be there as a private nature preserve, for he and his family. However, he's been gracious enough to give me access full time to this 1,000-acre plot right in the heart of LaFleur County. And so the Paranormal Intelligence Agency, my organization, and I'm the current director of Four Corners International, which is the cryptozoology wing of what we do that we run, still in honor of J.C. Johnson, the founder, who, and the investigators that I work with, taught basically all of us much of what we know. So that's kind of why you'll see other investigators like Robert Kreider and Mark Para, et cetera, out there also, flying the banner of the Crypto Four Corner group. It's sort of these days sort of an exclusive group of investigators that all had personal ties to J.C. Johnson, and we help each other out, even though we're in different regions, of the country doing our work. So, but before I get too deep into all of that, need to go ahead and discuss disclosure news this week. So, disclosure news. This week there was something historic that happened, and that is the Congress had their open UFO/UAP hearings. Of course, those of us who are long-term investigators into UFOs, aliens, etc. It's one of those things that make you nod off and go to sleep. But it's historic in that it's not going away. So since all of the Lou Elizondo and the leaked videos and etc., there have been opportunities for that splash that those videos made to sort of fade and go away, and they haven't, and that tells us a whole lot, especially some of the comments coming out of that meeting by some of the congressmen saying that they were going to delve much deeper into the subject. Now there's been a gentleman, if you Google it, it's out there, who claims, a senator who claims to have firsthand knowledge of UFO wreckage retrieval. That's out there in the mainstream, guys. And that reminds me to invite everybody out there to come by to the Paranormal Intelligence Agency Facebook page. And the reason why I say that is because the Paranormal Intelligence Agency operates as an open source intelligence gathering agency, meaning that most, if not all, information sources on the internet are sort of monitored every day. All of these articles from any kind of news source out there covering paranormal activity, subject matter, things going on with UFO disclosure, etc., all comes in at the same time, and much of that gets posted right to the Facebook page with the actual source link. It's just something kind of that we provide as a free service to people that are on there. So make sure you go by and like that and check that out. But if you look that up, you'll see it's a very interesting article, and that's the government. I did an interview with Brent Thomas over on Paranormal Portal yesterday, and that'll be out on Sunday, he says. And we had a really good, deep discussion on current disclosure, and the fact that the Congress had just had their meeting, and what basically the future is going to hold for paranormal research. And we got into the subject matter of what I've been covering over a few of these episodes, having to do with the Pentagon's OSAP program, with their discovery and findings of the hitchhiker effect, and the link between known paranormal activity and UFO activity. That's all in the episodes I've done in the last, 5 or 6 episodes. So all of that information is out there, and it's something I'll continue to discuss because it really changes the sort of the landscape of paranormal research as it stands. I don't think any longer groups are going to be able to have the position that the phenomenon that they're studying is somehow independent from the phenomenon that another investigative group may be studying. I think that going forward, you're going to find more and more links coming forward. So we got a lot of just crazy people. So basically, I put this, a link out on the to this show on a few different Facebook board, Bigfoot boards, etc. And invariably, you always get, you can call them trolls or you can just call them scum, and they show up on your live chat boards, and they make juvenile comments, and they try to tear everything down. And it's because these people are losers, and they sit at home and they want so badly to go out and do field research, but they can do anything but sit on their sofa and gripe and moan and try to, distract everybody that's on there from actual real field research that's being done. So when they pop up on the live chat, slap them down, let them know. I come across them as I'm kind of going. You'll see me glance over, and if I notice them, I'll block them and get them out of here because the world's full of idiots. So what are you going to do? So anyhow, we were discussing this hitchhiker effect and its link to the Dogman cryptid, and this all occurred and is recounted in the book Skinwalkers at the Pentagon by Colm Kelleher, the chief scientist, who was both the chief scientist at the Skinwalker Ranch under NIDS and Robert Bigelow, and was then the chief scientist at the OSAP program. There's all kinds of interviews out there with this gentleman right now. A lot of them are with George Knapp, who's been sort of a journalist ever since the very first for the Skinwalker book, who's kind of been chosen, if you will, to disseminate a lot of this information. So that's the fact that we've had this much disclosure and it's boring a lot of us to death means it's not going to go away, and it's coming ever forward. And this book that they wrote, I think, is still ever more part of that disclosure, because they're faced, it looks like, with the real problem of truly understanding what they're dealing with. So, I mean, he even makes the statement that, and this is in the report given to Congress, that until they're able to understand the underlying paranormal activity associated with the UFO phenomenon, they will never be able to fully understand the UFO phenomenon itself. That's how big of a connection there is between the two. So, one of the principal gentlemen associated with this program was a high-ranking CIA official, and CIA agent, and he is only identified by the name Axelrod. And Mr. Axelrod takes this paranormal activity home with him, as I've discussed, through the hitchhiker effect, and it's a very virus-like effect. His family begins to experience that paranormal activity, and chief among that activity are two separate Dogman encounters. Now, OSAP has made the causal link, right, between Dogman encounters and what they were experiencing with the hitchhiker effect, which is directly related to the extraterrestrial phenomenon that they are studying. How can we, as investigators, write that off and say there isn't an extraterrestrial link to not only that Dogman sighting, but by virtue of that one, perhaps all of them? And when you plug that into the overall equation of the Dogman mystery, it begins to make a whole lot of sense. And I bring that up really because this is all sort of tied together. So in my book, Bigfoot Unleashed, I talk about how there's a wide array of paranormal activity also associated with interaction with this species. And I draw a lot of, parallels between the two. And, I suggest that you can draw up, all of the like things they have, right? Like, a long-running indigenous oral history of their existence, Dogman and Sasquatch. You have physical evidence being left at the scene of sightings of both creatures. You have a ever-increasing body of highly credible eyewitnesses in both cryptid phenomenons. And so, in effect, if you removed, the heads of the creatures and put them on the other body, but they were covered up, you would not be able to really tell a difference between the two phenomenon without them having a descriptive biological difference, and perhaps, behavioral differences, etc., like that. But the UFO component is still there. And it's been widely chronicled and widely ignored by a lot of the Bigfoot community, because let's face it, it's hard enough to convince your family that you're sane investigating Bigfoot when you throw the UFO gasoline on top of it, starts to look to everybody like a garbage fire, garbage bin on fire. But if you read Bigfoot Unleashed, it's got great reviews. You'll see what all the culmination of all of that evidence is, and it's indisputable. That's the evidence. I present the evidence right there. You can look at it. You can go research it for yourself. Those are actual cases. Many of them, including the very first one, was conducted by CIA agents, and we didn't even know about it till recently. So, but the overall disclosure drip that's coming out is something that, I was talking to Brent at Paranormal Portal, and he was like, it's like these little articles come out all over the place, and there's so much going on that I don't notice, that it's come out or whatever. And that's kind of why you have a continuous news feed of that on the PIA Facebook page. And I brought up the fact that recently there was a number of mainstream news outlets like the New York Post and, the usual Washington Post, etc., all talking about a particular aspect of the UAP report that was, prepared for the Congress. And the headline was that one of the UFO interactions caused an unwanted pregnancy. I mean, are you hearing that? That showed up in the mainstream media. Here is a drip, 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 all of a sudden mention of an unexplained and unwanted pregnancy, which, of course, harkens us right back to the alien abduction phenomenon and all of these very highly credible women who claim to have suffered from it. And so, people are always like, well, where's disclosure? How come they don't just tell us? They're never going to just come out and tell you. And there's a whole lot of reasons why. And I discussed those psychological reasons on the interview on Paranormal Portal. So check that out. But it all goes back to their idea of predictive programming and social engineering, and a way of keeping and controlling and maintaining power in their minds is maintaining society. And this is a drip, drip, drip so that everybody doesn't freak out all at once. The article's been out for weeks. And they're going to say, later on, people are going to say, how come you didn't tell us? They're going to say, how come you didn't read? How come you weren't looking? How come, you don't have, there's never going to be somebody anymore like a mainstream media news talking head that you're going to be able to rely on as telling you the truth. There might be elements of the truth, but it's not like back in the days when you had like Walter Cronkite and there was zero opinion in the news and it was simply a reading of a list of facts and nothing else. That doesn't exist anymore. And so you have to kind of do that for yourself. And if you pay attention, you're going to see more than enough disclosure. In fact, you catch yourself looking around going, you guys read, you seeing this? And no, they're just too busy. They're too busy, filling up the gas tank. They're too busy worried about the war. They're too busy about everything other than really the biggest thing they should be worried about. That's just my opinion. So kind of catches up on disclosure news. Now, there is some material apparently that came from some craft, and that's in 2 different labs that are being studied. They've been there for quite a while, so I'm not sure if we'll ever know what is discovered by them, because some of it is in Army laboratories that went through the TTSA program. So anyway, let's get back to Oklahoma Bigfoot. And this is near and dear to my heart because I grew up in southeastern Oklahoma. I had a grandfather who was half Choctaw Indian, and he told me from a very early age of the reality of their existence. And this area that I'm now given access to is the very area where the Choctaw Indians were for so very long, and is an approximate area of where their tribe had recorded a battle, a fight between their warriors and some of these creatures who had taken children from them. It is out there. If you do a lot of Bigfoot research, you will come across it, even though it's little known. It did occur, and there's been some others, like the Paiute and their recorded war with the Seneca. We're not sure if the Seneca were actually Bigfoot creatures or were related to this other mystery of red-haired giants in North America. We just don't know. So I prepared a little, well, this video I've had for a while. So this is from an initial trip that was made to this property. I will be returning to this property on Saturday with just one other team member. We're going to be very quiet. We're going to be very slow. We're going to be very methodical with this opportunity because we don't want to screw it up. This is the kind of opportunity that JC Johnson and I always talked about. I would love dearly if he was here to share in the fun of what's about to happen. Being given access to what is in effect a cryptid laboratory in one of the best spots you could ever imagine is going to allow us to do something a lot of groups haven't been able to do, and that's to deploy expensive, long-range, long-running equipment, detection equipment, that will literally contact us on the phone immediately as something, we'll see an image right away, that kind of thing, without worrying about other humans coming by and stealing the equipment. On top of that, we'll be able to take any and all equipment that we want. So that's going to be really cool too. Oh, thanks a lot, Jyoti. Appreciate it. Got a nice comment there, and I appreciate that. So, so this opportunity I'm excited about. I just, I don't know if you can tell, but I am. As a cryptozoologist, I'm sort of stunned that the stars aligned in such a way that I grew up with a childhood friend who was able to buy land in an area where all of this Bigfoot stuff is occurring. He's not a Bigfoot guy, never has been, not interested in the paranormal at all. It's a deer hunter, and there's a lot of razorback out there. So razorback are shot on site. You have to, because they breed insanely and they are vicious animals, and they got tusk on them like that. People that are unfamiliar with southern Oklahoma, boar are, in for a surprise when they see 300 or 400 pounds with the tusk and coming at you full steam. Is some scary stuff, but that's what you endure when you go out into these areas. Now, this place is completely raw forest. There's nothing there. There are no human structures. There are, there's one road that goes right down the middle of the property. And so I'm going to show it to you. It'll take me just a second to pull this up for you guys. Let's see here. Population of Sasquatch creatures living in the forest. We'll start you over from the beginning. Here we go. The implications of the public finally accepting the reality of a breeding population of Sasquatch creatures living in the forests of North America are far greater than most would suppose. When the spotted owl of Washington State was discovered to be endangered, it bankrupted the logging industry overnight. One can then just imagine what the repercussions will be economically when it is finally proven that there is an endangered species of half-human creatures living in the wilds of America. The National Park Service will be overrun with concerned parents too afraid to go on summer vacation with their children, and all of those mysterious disappearances so eloquently researched by David Paulides in his seminal work Missing 411 will haunt both the public and their elected officials. This is just the beginning. The effect on both established academia
and a great deal of religious beliefs will be to profoundly change them forever. The existence of Bigfoot
lives in the collective psyche of our society like no other cryptid creature or unsolved mystery. Mankind has always been afraid of what could be lurking in the dark, and now it is poised to know the reason why.
All right, guys. So that's a pretty decent look at the property. As brief as it was, the one structure on there is the this old kind of rundown ranch house structure that's not in use. So there's little to no human activity that's ever out there. My friend goes out there during hunting season with one or two family members, and that's when they harvest a deer or two, and that's it. And the land's sort of kept in commemoration of a family member that they lost. So it's a unique opportunity. Now, those ponds that you saw on the video there, I think there's 6 of those on the property. So you can imagine the available water source for these creatures, and the food source is so abundant that I describe it as a Garden of Eden for Sasquatch. It is a Garden of Eden. The entire 1,000 acres runs right through the middle of an Ozark Valley, and there are Ozark ridges on either side. And so it sort of has this perfect little protected area where there's no one and where their game can be readily had. The water is never a problem. It's never too cold. We have very, very mild, nice winters in Oklahoma. And so this is a place that is a perfect habitat for Bigfoot. Absolutely perfect. And so the hope here, the end goal here is to do what we thought we had already achieved at one point, and I'm talking about the group that JC had assembled with Robert Kreider and George Harvey, and gosh, there's a lot of them to name. you know who they are out there, but you know, we collected DNA. I explained why the DNA will never be accepted by, you know, mainstream geneticists until there's a body, and that's because it's not recorded in what's called the World Genetic Bank. And to be recorded in the World Genetic Bank, you have to have a specimen. So it's a catch-22. You just can't. It's an impossible thing to do. And so, you know, we already thought that we had obtained the evidence necessary for final discovery. And let's face it, that's the end all goal of any mystery, including the cryptid animals. And so here it is. All the balls are lined up, and let's hope that, you know, it produces results that have not been able to been captured up till now. We'll see. On top of that, there's some techniques that JC and I, especially, I mean, he developed them and went over them with me quite a few times, and we'll be deploying some of those. I've got a new investigator that will be going with me that's an ex-Marine and extremely accomplished hunter and woodsman. So you'll be seeing some of her on the films that are coming out, but I will be shooting some footage. I'll be able to hopefully get some aerial footage for you guys as well. And you're going to kind of go on the investigation with me as this unfolds. That being said, if you are familiar with the channel, then you're probably familiar with the investigative, in-depth, full-length investigative videos that I have posted on there. When I started doing Paranormal Planet, I ended up not having enough time to produce those more in-depth investigative videos. That, on top of the fact I'm going to be doing a lot of crypto field work, means that I'm going to scale back Paranormal Planet Live to twice a month. So it'll be every other week. That'll give me some time to actually produce the more in-depth investigative videos for people. If you take a look at them, you can see where they get 30, 40,000 views. Paranormal Planet gets a couple of thousand. It's just a more effective communication piece for mysteries, even though I love doing the show and will always continue to do it. So, and what else did I have for you guys? Well, I think that's it for tonight. And so this weekend, I'll be taking some more footage while we're out there. We're going to do a very soft entry into the property. We're going to go in, you know, full ghillie, and we're going to walk very softly around the main water sources and try to find you know, some good fresh sign to begin with. So thanks for showing back up, guys. Been a few weeks, I know. I will be doing another Paranormal Planet Live, though, this coming Thursday, just to get caught up on some stuff. So I will see you this coming Thursday, and look forward to a really exciting summer. So thanks, guys. Until then, you know, be safe out there. It's a crazy world.